not the leader of a cult. RabbitWithAxe.
Greetings, demons, and welcome to something I have not done in pretty much 2 years. I have not done a tier list at all since I did the every Mario character tier list in 2024. So this is something a little bit different, and we are going to be basically ranking every single, within reason, Nintendo console ever. And I do have some, well, first off, I've definitely missed something. I'm sure I have. I have, I think 38? Something like that? 36? I don't know. Something around there. Different consoles. I'm not recounting it. I counted it earlier. I just forgot. And yeah, I have not played all of them. Some of these I'm just going to be going off vibes. And also, I only have one Game & Watch. I only have one for the entire line. It's Donkey Kong 2, just because I think that's a more interesting one to look at. But yeah, I'm not ranking the 10 million different Game & Watch systems that I've released. And I'm also only doing one of each of the classic consoles, so we'll get to it when we get to it. So yeah, this is in a ridiculously stupid order. We will, though, however, start with the game color. Is that what it's called? I actually cannot remember this thing. But this was Nintendo's first home console, technically, and it's basically a Pong machine. It's not far off, at least. And yeah, I'm gonna be honest, it's not the most interesting of things. It looks weird. It looks cool. I've never seen one of these in person. I've seen a lot of classic consoles in like museums and stuff. I've never seen this thing before in person. I've seen pictures of it online and stuff. But yeah, I think realistically, it's okay. It's Nintendo's first console, home console at least, so like it makes sense that it's nothing too special. But also, like it's a Pong machine, essentially. It's nothing notable. It's not exactly something that's well known. Your average person isn't going to look at that and know it's a Nintendo console necessarily. I think that's pretty fair. Just calling it okay. It may move down. I haven't used it. I don't really know what the library for it is like, so I'm not going to say it's bad outright. But yeah, it can't be any better than okay at the very least. What else have we got to look at? We'll pull out something else that I have a controversial opinion on. The N64. So, if you've watched my videos talking about this kind of stuff before, you'll know that I very much am of the opinion that the N64 is Nintendo's worst console. Not necessarily because of the games. I think the game library, as small as it is actually pretty good. You've got Star Fox 64, you've got Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie started on the N64. Like, there's a lot of good stuff there. However, look at this controller and tell me, like, with a straight face, that it is a good controller. Add to that the fact that I don't think the console is that aesthetically pleasing. It's iconic in a way. Like, both of these things are iconic in a way, but the console itself, it's just, what on earth is going on? What was the design philosophy? Especially, you look at consoles that were releasing around the same time, you look at what Sega was releasing, you look at, obviously, the PlayStation, and what on earth was the idea here? Like, I understand that Nintendo were the first to kind of go for, 3D movement, essentially. Like, they had to develop a lot of these ideas, but at the same time, what is this? Like, the three prongs make no sense. It's not really applicable in, like, a modern scenario, really. Like, the fact it is only one stick, and we'll come back to that with some of the consoles that we look at, but the fact it is one stick makes it so it's not ideal, really, at all, in a modern sense. And, yeah, as I say, the library itself, pretty good. And obviously, like, you could easily call this generational. It introduced the world properly to 3D gaming. We'd had 3D games, especially like in the arcade and stuff, prior to the N64, and even in the home. Was it the Jaguar? I can't remember. One of the other, like, lesser game companies had released a 3D console. But yeah, personally, I just don't like the N64, and I'm glad that you can play a lot of the N64 library on other consoles. and I'd much rather do that. I would rather play Mario 64 on the DS than I would ever want to play it on the actual 64. I just don't like the controller, and I don't think the console is very good. Kind of in part because of that, but also I generally don't think it's that great in the grand scheme of things, especially with what came immediately after. I think realistically N64 deserves to be at the bottom here. With that out of the way, though, there's gonna be a lot of people that don't like that opinion, and I get it. But also, like, you know, this is my tier list. This is my opinion. You know, I'm not saying this is fact. And that's why I'm going to put, where is it? I'm going to put the DSi, if I can identify it from the selection here, this one, at iconic. And not necessarily because it is truly iconic. I understand that it's not actually. But this was such, like, at the time when it released, this was such a big deal. Having all the mini games that were related to the camera and everything, just having a camera, like, in a time where it wasn't quite the oversaturation of, like, mobile devices. Like, everyone has a phone with a camera now, and, you know, I think even at that point, you know, I'm pretty sure my phone had a camera. I don't think it was a very good camera. I think my DSi had a better camera than it, but, like, you know, the DSi was everything that the DS Lite had, plus more. And fair enough, you are losing things like the Game Boy Advance slot, which means you can't play like Guitar Hero, I guess, but, like, still, it is such a step up. The fact they actually had the ability to return to the home screen without turning the console off, like, that is amazing. It was still region free, just like the original DS and DS Lite. It could play all those games. It had a few exclusives, not too many, but it had like 6-7 exclusive games, which you can't really complain about that. I think that was pretty good overall. And just in general, I honestly, I still pick up and play the DSi that I have to this day, the same one that I had from when I was a kid. And it just comes down to the fact that it is genuinely a good console. And also it's backwards compatible, it's region free, as I just said. So, like, you know, if I want to play Tomodachi Collection, that's how I'm playing it. But, yeah, I love the DSi. I think it is a great console. It's not the best portable console, by any means. We'll get to that one in a moment. I think that's also a controversial pick, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, I think the DSi is one of... It's, you know, top 3, I'd say, for DS consoles, and at least top 5 for handhelds. And yeah, it will quickly move down the ranks of iconic, but it deserves, in my opinion, to be an iconic. Something that doesn't, however, in the same vein, the original DS. That thing is awful. I never actually had one. I went straight to the DS Lite, but my cousin had a DS original, and that thing was awful. The screen was so dim. Like, the overall build quality, like, it's chunky. It's, like, weirdly uncomfortable for how, like, curved it is. Like, the fact that the DS Lite is, like, so much more, like, jagged, and yet feels so much more comfortable is so weird to me. I don't understand people. Every once in a while, I hear from someone that they really prefer the original DS from the DS Lite, and I don't get it. I really don't understand how you could prefer that to literally any other DS model. And, you know, once again, just like with the N64, the N64 obviously was the beginning of, you know, 3D gaming. The DS original was the start of, like, the dual screen idea, though, and we'll get to Game & Watch in a moment. But at the same time, like, it really didn't offer enough, especially, like, at launch. The fact that the DS Lite came out so quickly shows you that, like, Nintendo wasn't truly confident in the original DS. Like, the original DS, its starting lineup for games weren't too great. Eventually it had a good library, but most people played that library on the DS Lite or the DSi or the DSi XL, or even the 3DS. The DS original was relatively short-lived for a handheld from Nintendo, and genuinely has very little reason to go back to it. And I think that's why I'm putting it so low here, because it is a why. It is, like, if I see someone that is using a DS, well, I mean, to be fair, in the market currently, it's not exactly, it's not exactly a dumb choice, but, like, I look at someone using an original DS, and I just have to question, like, why aren't you using literally any of the other half dozen consoles that can do this? Like, because they're all better. There's not a single DS variant, or 3DS variant, or 2DS variant, anything that can play DS games that is worse than the original DS, in my opinion. And, you know, agree to disagree. If you think that the original DS is like the best thing, fair enough. But yeah, it's just not for me. It is just not for me, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm gonna put that in Y next to the N64. Ironically, both have Mario 64, so you know, as launch titles as well. That's interesting enough. Okay, let's see. We'll go with an oddball. There's two oddballs right next to each other. Not sure which one to go. We'll go with the Panasonic Q. So this is a GameCube, with a DVD player. It's not a GameCube with a built-in DVD player. It is a GameCube and a DVD player. Like, it is two separate things. You have to, like, switch between the two. It's not like, you know, with most other consoles that can play DVDs or whatever, where it's all in one. Or maybe you have to download an app in, like, the Xbox case or whatever. No, this is just... It's two separate items put in the same shell. It's very interesting. Japanese exclusive, but it is a fully functioning GameCube. So there's that. It was not made by Nintendo. It was made by Panasonic. I am very interested in getting one of these one day. I don't actually own a normal GameCube currently. I just use a Wii original. But the Panasonic Q is a very interesting piece of tech. However, the fact that it is, you know, very much two separate pieces of tech just welded together, I can't quite put it at the top here. Like, it is, like, you're going to see where I put the GameCube, and then you're going to question where I put the Panasonic Q. Despite the fact this is a GameCube plus a DVD player, the jank of it, the fact that it is still very much two separate items, just in one package, it brings it down a little bit. I'm going to drop this in great. It's still a GameCube. You know, the GameCube, as you're going to see with my ranking later, is great. Is an absolutely superb console. I love the GameCube. However, the Panasonic Q, just because of the weirdness of it, it gets knocked down a little bit. And, you know, maybe if I actually had one in person, I would change my mind on that. Maybe I would think, you know, much more highly of it, even. But, yeah, as is, it's great. It's a great console. It's something that I want. And I think, like, a lot of the things I'm going to show is that anything from great or above is something that I either already own and love, or want to own because I think it's cool. And yeah, I think that genuinely the Panasonic Q, for as weird as it is and for like not quite perfect as it is very much in that ballpark of I really want one of these things one day. They are just so expensive, and obviously you have to pay import fees and everything. It's just, it becomes such a problem to get them in working order, you know, in Europe or basically anywhere outside of Japan. And yeah, very interesting console though, very, very cool in my opinion. And I guess we'll go back to another handheld. We'll go with the original GBA. This was actually my first Game Boy console that was working. Should I say? I'm gonna tell a story about my actual first Nintendo handheld when we get to that console. But in terms of actual working consoles, my first one was this exact GBA, the purple GBA, the violet GBA, whatever, the GameCube color GBA, whatever they actually officially call that. And yeah, it's not great, I will say. I think it's one of the most ergonomic of all the Game Boys in general. I think it's one of the most comfortable to hold. However, it doesn't have a backlit screen, which is a real shame for an advanced console, like essentially a Game Boy Pro of its time. And the fact that, yeah, it doesn't have a backlit screen, doesn't have a frontlit screen either. It, you know, has a lot of the issues that, you know, the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color had. It does have better color than the Game Boy Color, I'll give it that. And it does have full backwards compatibility, which cannot be dismissed. Like, that is such a good feature. However, if we're talking, you know, best of all time game consoles and everything, especially from Nintendo, I don't think I can put it in the top 3. I own it, I enjoy it. However, if I'm playing a Game Boy Advance game, it's not even my second choice technically, because I'd choose the DSi before I'd choose DS Lite, before I choose the Game Boy Advance original. it's an alright console. If you mod it, it's actually really good. I've been tempted to get mine modded for a very long time to get backlit screen. Jeez, I am really stumbling over my words. But it's one of the things where it's like, if you need to mod a console, is it really that good of a console? I'm not going to put it that low. I'm going to put it above the color TV or whatever this thing's called, whatever the original Nintendo console called. Who cares what it's called? You know. I'm sorry. But yeah, I can't put it in. As I said, the top 3 are very much like consoles that I genuinely like really love. I can't say that I genuinely love the original GBA just because it's not as good as other consoles. And like, you know, as much as I will say it is the most ergonomic, it's not like the rest of the Game Boy line is not ergonomic. Like, every Game Boy console is comfortable. I'd say that all of them are more comfortable than, you know, say the original DS. However, like, I don't know. It just comes down to the fact that it's like, it's not as good as the SP, and it really knocks it down in my book, because every other Game Boy has a reason that you'd want to play it. Maybe not the original necessarily, but generally, like, there is a reason to play every Game Boy, except the Game Boy Advance, unless it's modded. If you have it modded, if you have a backlit, if you have an LCD, whatever, then alright, yeah, fair enough. GBA is probably actually the best one. But as is, I'm not gonna, at a base level, I'm not gonna put it any higher than this. I think that's pretty fair. Let's jump around a little bit. We will go with, where did I get... Did I not put it on here? Apparently I didn't. Unless I'm just blind. I definitely downloaded the image, but apparently it didn't get added to the list. I was going to go with the Famicom, the actual Japanese SNES. I guess we're not going to do that, though, because I apparently didn't add it to the tier list. That's weird, because I added the Super Famicom alongside the regular American SNES and the Junior. Yeah, for some reason, I definitely downloaded the image. Never mind. When I was making it, I clearly just messed up, but it's fine. So the original NES obviously basically saved video games as we know it. You know, in the Americas with Rob, and just in general across the world. Like, the fact that after Atari kind of destroyed the market, NES, you know, Nintendo came in with their entertainment system and actually won back a lot of favor for and created some of the greatest games of all time. You know, even just down to like launch titles and stuff were so good. And obviously Mario Bros, Duck Hunt, I'm gonna struggle to mention anything else for some reason. Tetris was on here. Like, there's so many games. The actual like NES library is one of the best. However, it isn't the best Nintendo console. Like, it's, you know, got a real uncomfortable controller. If I had the Famicom here, I could talk about the fact that that has like better controllers. Not great controllers, but by any means, but better than the NES. But I don't have that one in the list. In terms of, if we're considering the both to be the same, because I think we're going to have to, I can put it in iconic. I don't think I can put it in generational. Despite everything that it did for the video game industry, like the fact it did bring it back from the brink, essentially, after Atari, you know, buried everything and just hid the evidence. But yeah, the NES itself is such a good console. I've got some good memories playing the NES. I don't currently own one, mostly because I just don't find the controller comfortable, so why would I bother? Also, I have an NES Classic, so I have more games in the NES Classic than I have physically. Like, there's no point in me playing the NES. But yeah, I do like the NES, and the Famicom itself has so many upgrades and so many like better things about it that like it's definitely a worthwhile console. Like, if you are someone who likes to get like Japanese imports for gaming and stuff, the Famicom, the original Famicom, is a really nice thing to have. With the original NES, it's like, obviously it's iconic. Obviously, like, so many people, especially game collectors, which I guess I technically am, would say like, oh yeah, the NES is like a big thing. You should start with it. You should make sure you collect as many games, as many of the big games especially, as possible. And for me, it's just like, it's a good console. It has a lot of amazing games, but it has a few aspects that just let it down. Obviously, it hasn't aged overly well. It's kind of difficult to run on modern TVs. Obviously, you know, a true gaming enthusiast wouldn't want to be running an NES on a modern LCD or LED or OLED screen. They'd be wanting to run it on, you know, something a little older, tube TV, you know, CRT. that sort of thing. But also not everyone has one. I don't even have a CRT, and I consider myself a bit of an enthusiast. But like, yeah, the NES is a good console. It has a lot of good games. Its controllers are a bit uncomfortable, but honestly, is pretty good to this day. There's still plenty of like classic style controllers that essentially do exactly what the NES controller does, just with, you know, rounded corners, and those are excellent. Those are legitimately great controllers that you can use on a multitude of consoles. I will get to it with the one that I think is probably the better for that exact experience, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, the NES, it has to be an iconic. I couldn't put it next to the Panasonic Q. It's not quite, you know, it's never going to be low. You know, it's never going to be on the same level as the color TV. But like it's not perfect. It's not the best console ever. And I think really a lot of that comes down to the fact that its successor was so good, which I guess we may as well talk about that. So I'm gonna, to be fair, there's no point me talking about the Super Famicom and the regular SNES as separate consoles, is there? So I'm just gonna use the Super Famicom because this is what it looks like in Europe. And yeah, the SNES is our first for generational. It is honestly one of the greatest consoles Nintendo's ever produced. It is such a leap in pretty much every regard compared to the original NES, and they learned from basically all their mistakes. Everything about the actual construction of the console, everything about the cartridges, which, to be fair, the European and Japanese cartridges are a little bit different. But like, everything about the SNES was an improvement, and that is shown no better than with the controller. And that's what I was saying about there's a classic controller that I think is far better suited to modern games, and that is the SNES controller. I recently got the 8-bit Do classic controller. I don't know what the specific naming is for it, but that one has essentially just the SNES layout with extra triggers and two sticks. And it's so good. It is such a good controller, and that's because it's the SNES controller. At the end of the day, and you know, as much as it is a joke nowadays, the SNES controller and the PS1 controller are literally the exact same thing. It's just the PS1 controller has thighs. That's all the difference that there is. And it's because the SNES controller genuinely is a brilliant design. It's not great for 3D games, I'll give it that. But obviously, there weren't 3D games in the sense that we think of them now. You know, the closest we had was things like Donkey Kong Country, which, that's another thing, the FX chip. The SNES had legitimate 3D games, just not, you know, open world sandboxes like the N64 brought us. It was such a powerful console for its time, and everything that came out for it was instantly iconic. You know, you look at the main Mario for the system, Super Mario World, one of the greatest of all time. Even the sequel, Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, is excellent. You have the original Star Fox, Starwing, which is obviously a great game in and of itself. The aforementioned Donkey Kong Country. There's just so many games, so many great games that like are represented on the SNES, and I think it has to be said that it's like, it is genuinely one of the greatest consoles of all time from any company, and I don't really say that lightly. Like, the SNES was brilliant for its time. It's brilliant today. Like, it's one of those consoles where it is a little bit rough getting it set up on a modern TV, but unlike the NES where it really suffers from being, you know, blown up and, you know, no filter lines and everything like that, the SNES pixel art still stands up in a lot of the games. Like, I would argue most SNES games still look brilliant even today, and that's probably why a lot of, you know, retro styled games use that 16-bit style rather than 8-bit. It's so brilliant, it looks so good, it's so easy to make good looking pixel art characters in a 16-bit style, in an SNES style, compared to an 8-bit style. 8-bit is still impressive and you can still do a lot with it, but when it comes to what the NES brought visually, I think it's basically a match for pixel art. I think it's brilliant. Having, you know, worked with pixel art pretty frequently in the past, and even made a pixel art based game, working with 8-bit was insufferable compared to 16-bit. 16-bit just is so freeing. It looks so good. It's so vibrant. Like, there's so many extra things that you get with that visual style, and yeah, just overall, the SNES is genuinely one of the best consoles of all time, and I do not, for a second, think that, like, it doesn't deserve to be in the generational category here. I think it is the best Nintendo console, potentially. We'll think about it a little bit more. I'm not going to say that definitively right now, but we'll think about that later, and I will throw the regular American-style SNES there as well, just for the sake of having both of them there. And while we're at it, we may as well also quickly... I know we skipped the top loader. We may as well just talk about the SNES Junior. Technically, this is a better console than the regular SNES. It has a lesser failure rate. It does run a little bit better. It's kind of a nice design. It's nothing too special. I'm almost thinking, should I just put it next to it, because it doesn't really change much. It's still very much just an SNES. I don't personally like the design as much. It's also a little bit inconsistent with the coloring and stuff. It kind of has the console colors of the, American style SNES, while it has the controller of the Famicom, the Super Famicom. So, also, I'm saying Famicom. I know that's not right. I know it's family computer, so it's Famicom. It's just I can't speak properly for some reason. I've never been able to say Famicom properly, so excuse that. But yeah, I'm going to put it at the top of iconic, just because it's not the console that I think most people think of. Like, I don't think a lot of people even know that the SNES Junior actually exists. Like, I think most people wouldn't recognize it if they were shown it. And we'll actually get to... Well, we'll do it now, actually. The SNES top loader, once again, just like with the the alternate version of the SNES, it's going to go down. It does actually fix one of the major issues that I have with the original NES, and that is the controller. It gives you the Dogbone controller. It's essentially just a proto SNES controller. But, like, what on earth is this? Like, I'm almost tempted to put this in. Why? Like, it's such a weird design. And, like, I get why it exists. I get the point of it. Like, it was a cheaper console to make. It took a lot of the ideas that were being used for the SNES and, like, put them on the NES. So it made a lot of sense at the time, I suppose. But, like, there's no real reason, especially because it only has, like, AV out or something. Like, I can't remember specifically. It might be component or something. It only has one video output, whereas the original NES has 2 or 3. I can't actually remember. But either way, it has a worse video out. It might be RF. I don't remember. It's one of those... It's a worse output is the only option for the top loader, which just makes it a worse console. Like, it's not as valuable as getting an actual NES, and despite the fact, I think this one, just like with the Junior, it does have less of a failure rate. Like, I think it is less likely for this thing to die. I don't really care at that point. Like, it's not the iconic design. It's not, anything too special. The controller is nice, but that controller can work on the original. So if you really just want the Dogbone controller, you can just use that on the original NES. And yeah, I think overall it just comes down to, it's not as iconic. It's not necessarily as good in all aspects, despite the fact it does have some improvements. And yeah, overall, it is a drop down. It isn't as good. And I think we'll move forward a little bit. We'll jump ahead a few generations. You know what? Let's go with the Wii U. The one that doesn't have a plain white background for some reason. And, yeah, that's not where I'm dropping it. But, the Wii U is an interesting console. I only recently got one last year, and I quite like it. I've been enjoying playing some of the games that are still exclusive to it. Obviously, a lot of stuff has come out on the Switch, since the Switch came out. But, still, it is a very good console with a decent library. Small library, I will say, but still a very decent library. It suffers a lot from the fact that it was called the Wii U. Like, if it was called the Wii 2, I think it would have probably done better. If it was just called something else entirely, if it just had a different name that, completely detached from the Wii, I think it would have done better. And I think that is a lot of the issue. A lot of its problems are down to the branding, which is a really unfortunate state to be in, because I genuinely think, like, the Wii U is a good console. Like, unironically, I do quite enjoy it. I think it has a lot of ideas that, would eventually turn into the Switch, but like it's not perfecting any of it. Like the screen on the handheld, on the actual little, I don't even remember what it's actually called officially, but the actual like gamepad, the controller, the screen's too small. Like the buttons are decent. Like it's actually pretty ergonomic overall. It's nicer to hold than like a regular Wiimote at the very least. However, it's just there's a lot going wrong with it. The actual gamepad wasn't used too heavily. You still kind of required, some Wii controllers, which, to be fair, most people getting a Wii U would have had Wii controllers from the Wii, so that's fine. However, like, it doesn't include them. I think there were some bundles that had, like, a Wii remote included, but, like, generally it wasn't a common occurrence. And also, I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot with the two different variations. Obviously, here we have the standard or basic set. There was also the deluxe. And the deluxe had the nicer paint job. It was the black console. It looked sleeker. More of a dust magnet, in my opinion, but it is what it is. And it also had more storage, which, in an era where we were beginning to get a lot more digital games, and obviously the Nintendo eShop was a thing at this point, it was a bit of a problem that it had next to no storage on the basic set comparatively, especially because, we were in an era where some games needed downloads, where save data was taking up more and more space. We also had all the various, like, game share and not game share. I actually can't remember what it was called on the Wii U, but the Miiverse or whatever it was called, the actual, like, shareable, like, images and stuff. The fact that you had all that stuff where it had to be saved onto the console, it just having that smaller storage space just wasn't ideal, and it's something that, the Wii didn't really have to worry about. But when it comes to the Wii U, it did kind of take, I guess, the wind out of its sails in a lot of ways, the fact that it was split like that, especially because, a $50 difference is a pretty big jump for, your average consumer, especially when a lot of people just assumed the Wii U was an accessory. A lot of people just assumed that the Wii U was to the Wii what, like, the PSVR is to the PS4. Or PSVR 2 to the PS5, whatever. Where it's just like, this is an optional add-on. It requires the original thing, but it's an extra thing that you have to pay for, and it's like the price of another console. Most people think that. I'm pretty confident most people believe that that is the case, and it isn't, but that doesn't change the fact that people probably think that. And, yeah, it is unfortunate. I think I kind of have to put the Wii U a little low. I actually really like the Wii U, as I said, but I think it has to drop down just because of the mishandling. The fact that, like, the Wii generation was so hit or miss, and, like, there was so many bad games as well. As much as I said that the library is pretty good, there is so much bad stuff in that library that I can't reasonably put it any higher. Especially because, if I can't put it above the Game Boy Advance. Like, it's just not a thing. I can't do that. And, yeah, the Wii U, it had potential. It could have been a great console. And in fact, in some ways it was. But, yeah, it just suffered from being a little bit of a not PR, but like a promotional nightmare. It wasn't advertised well. Like, no one really knew what it was other than, like, the most diehard Nintendo fans. And that's not a great place to be, especially when your competition is the Xbox One and PS4. Which, as many downfalls as the Xbox One had, and, as... And to be fair, the PS4 never really had any major issues, now think about it. But, like, in that, environment, the Wii U was never going to do well with the, world it was given, with the actual setup it was given. And it's really unfortunate. It really is. But, yeah, that's all I can really say about the Wii U. We'll do with another weirdo, the Pokemon Mini. This is a dedicated Pokemon console, kind of like a Tamagotchi. I have never seen one of these in person. They cost like £300 on eBay, so I'll probably never get one. But yeah, it's essentially a Tamagotchi with Pokemon, which I think is pretty cool. I think it's pretty neat. I like Tamagotchi. I think this is a very weird thing to have been produced, especially because, this was around the same sort of time as like the Game Boy Micro and like the DS, and obviously the Game Boy SP was out, and the Game Boy Advance SP, sorry. Just, there's so much stuff going on at this time. It's like, why did this have to exist? I'm not going to say it actually belongs here because it isn't that bad of a console. However, it is essentially an LCD game console based around Pokemon. I can't put it any higher than bad. Like, it's got the potential. Like so many things that Nintendo tries, it has potential, but realistically, a lot of what this was offering was stuff that was offered in full games, in full RPGs, on the Game Boy line. And, would later be on the DS, the 3DS, and eventually, like, even Pokemon Go, and then the Switch and stuff. Like, you have so many options for how to play Pokemon. Why would you play it on the Pokemon Mini? It's a very weird release. Like, as I say, I'm very tempted to just put it here, but I feel it deserves a little bit of grace, just because it was them trying something a little bit different, trying to jump into a different market, and I think it's commendable in a way, even though the way they did it was very weird, and the fact that, like, most people probably don't even know this exists, like, it could never be higher, realistically, in the rankings. Like, most people don't know that Pokemon Mini is a thing, nor do they, know that it's official from Nintendo and not, like, Pokemon Company or whatever. It's just a very weird console to exist, and, yeah, it's not great. It's not great. I'll probably get one at some point, but, not at the prices that it's currently going for, that's for sure. Let's see, what should we go with? We'll go with the newest console from Nintendo, the Switch 2. I got this 2 months ago, and I have played it pretty much every day for at least like an hour. I love this thing. It has a lot of good games already. Obviously, being backwards compatible with the Switch gives it a huge advantage. But yeah, I've been loving Mario Kart World. All the Nintendo Switch updates or additions, whatever, for previously released games have been really good. And just in general, it's such an upgrade. The screen size is bigger. The Joy-Cons actually feel substantial, which is lovely, though I've personally been using the GameCube controller. Hint, hint, as to what I'll say about the GameCube. But, yeah, in general, the Switch 2 could potentially be, given another year or two, could be the best Nintendo console of all time. It's already looking like it's probably going to outsell the original Switch. Current price point withstanding, the fact they literally, like, 2 days ago got a price increase, is insane and is very questionable. And I really have to wonder, what the future of gaming really holds when everything is getting a price raise. Sure. But yeah, that alone, the recent controversy around that can't allow me to put it in generational. However, I think already, even, barely a year, or maybe literally a year since release, I think this is an iconic. I think this is such a good console. Like, I had a bunch of friends around recently for a games night. Not a video games night, but just, like, card games, board games, and a bit of video games. And as soon as I said, hey, who wants to play Mario Kart World? Immediately, everyone was interested. Everyone, grabbed a different controller. And we just had a fun time. It was really good. It was actually a really nice experience. Something that I haven't even had on the Switch, really, in, 6 years, 7 years. So it was really nice to actually get everyone together just playing the Switch again. And that's the kind of excitement that the Switch 2 was given. Even a year after release, like, it's still really, really bringing that excitement. And with so many games coming out for it, and, the library is already pretty expansive to begin with, I think it generally is a great console. Having the Switch mechanic of, portable and portable and home console, like, it's so good. It's so good. And I think it is better than the original Switch. We'll get to that when we get to that, but, like, I genuinely think it is better than the original Switch at this point. And yeah, the original Switch was already a really good console, so everything about it is an upgrade. There is some thermal issues. I haven't really personally experienced it, but I've seen a lot of people talking about it online. So potentially that is a downside, something that the original Switch didn't really suffer from. And obviously we still have Joy-Con drift, despite the fact that, the Joy-Cons do have a better mechanism. They are magnetic rather than on a rail. There's a lot fewer failure points on the Joy-Cons than on the original Switch. But it's still suffering from Joy-Con drift and stuff. Fortunately, I haven't had that yet, but 2 months in, I should hope not. Because I think pretty much every set of standard Joy-Cons I got for the original Switch had drift. which was just really unfortunate. But yeah, honestly, Switch 2, really good console. I've been really enjoying it, and still has a long life left on it. You know, the Switch 1 was 9 years, so the Switch 2 potentially the same, maybe longer. It depends on, you know, what happens with the economy and you know, RAM prices and stuff like that. But you know, that to the side, you know, ignoring that for a moment, like the Switch 2 is definitely a good enough console to live through the next console generation pretty easily. And yeah, it has all the biggest games on it. You know, some of them are getting delayed a little bit, but it's like, that's fine. They're all running perfectly fine. Everything that I play runs brilliantly. And yeah, just generally, it's such a good console. I really do love it. But enough blabbering about the console that everyone is talking about. Let's talk about something really irrelevant. The Game Boy Micro. Yeah, this is a weird one. So this was released after the DS had already released. This was basically them saying, oh look, the Game Boy brand isn't dead, you know, we're keeping it going. However, unlike the Game Boy SP, and the Game Boy Advance in general, the GBA in general, this isn't backwards compatible. This is only compatible with GBA games. Despite the fact it's called the Game Boy Micro, not the Game Boy Advanced Micro, it is only compatible with advanced games, which means it is literally no different from buying a DS or a DS Lite purely for Game Boy games. What was the point of this? I really like the fact that they did have a few, you know, swappable faceplates and stuff. It is a neat console, but why does it exist? What was the point of it? Why did Nintendo think that they needed to release more Game Boys? Like, they already had the SP on the market. Like, keep supporting the SP just in case, you know, there's an issue with the DS. That was the entire plan. You don't need to release another revision of the Game Boy, especially one that takes away features. Like, in a lot of ways, like, this is... It's a nice console. It's a pocketable console. It's very small. It's the smallest Nintendo handheld ever made. It may be bigger than the Pokemon Mini, actually, but either way, like, in terms of mainline handhelds, this is the smallest it got. And it's still lovely. It has a backlit screen, you know, it has the same screen as the SP pretty much, just smaller, and it is a good console. I just don't get why it exists. I don't understand the point of it, and unfortunately, that's why it's down here. I don't get it. It's nice, it's cool, I, like, appreciate that it exists just to look at, but it is the biggest example of why was this made? What was the point of this? It's really weird. So I guess we'll move on. We'll talk about the NES Classic. We'll talk about the classic consoles back to back, I think. So obviously these were released around the same time as the Switch. Well, towards the end of the Wii U, should I say. And they're interesting. They're emulation machines, you know, the same sort of thing that you often find in, like, bargain basement stores and stuff. And they were generally great. I think it's 20 games or 25 games on the NES, and I think the SNES has 26, because it has Star Fox 2. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, a great selection. I, as I say, already have the NES Classic. I don't have the SNES Classic, just because I own an actual SNES. I don't really need it. But yeah, honestly, the selection of games is really good. Obviously, nowadays, with the Switch and Switch 2's NSO library, it's not that necessary. But owning something like this that you have a controller for, it's actually fully compatible with any classic controllers from the Wii, which is really nice, on Wii U as well. It uses the exact same nunchuck connection, which is really nice. And yeah, in general, just a really cool little console. Just a plug-and-play console that has a lot of games on it, and all official, all best emulation you can get out of it. Not too many options. I'm not going to put it too high just because it doesn't have many, customization. It has CRT filter, and that's really it. But generally, this is a really good console, and I think it is a really good thing that Nintendo should have continued. I understand, like, with the Switch releasing, it was basically like, oh, we don't need this anymore. We're actually profiting now. But yeah, generally, like, a really good console. I'll put it below the Panasonic Q. Like, it's a good console. It didn't do anything too special, but like, official way to play classic NES games on an emulation device, something new, something smaller than an actual NES, something a lot cheaper than an actual NES, and yeah, in general, like, I genuinely think that this was a great thing to pick up at the time. I wish they'd sold it for longer, so that more people could have got it. It seemed to have a pretty short shelf life overall. But yeah, very happy that I personally got one of these, and yeah, genuinely a really good console. And we'll also talk about the SNES Classic. So yeah, once again, I have the Famicom style, the European style, whichever it is, and I didn't get this one because, as I say, I own an SNES. I didn't see the need. However, this has to go above the NES Classic purely because they released an unreleased game. They used the SNES Classic to release Star Fox 2, an unreleased SNES game. Crazy. Crazy that that's the timeline we live in, but that's what they did. They had, the base 25 or so games, and then once you played the first mission of Star Fox, of Star Wing, whatever you want to call it, you unlocked Star Fox 2. It was that simple, it was that easy, and yeah, genuinely such a cool thing to do, because essentially the reason you'd buy this, at least at the time, obviously nowadays you can play Star Fox 2 on Switch or Switch 2, but at the time, this was the way, the only official way to have Star Fox 2 in your collection, and that was really cool. That was a really cool thing. I really wish they had done some sort of promotional thing and released a cartridge version. But as is, I still think that is such a cool thing that they finally got that game released. And yeah, that alone puts it above the NES Classic. Otherwise, a lot of the stuff I said about the NES Classic applies to the SNES Classic. It's a great console. It's a great mini emulation machine. And with both of these, it can be said that if you mod them, they become even better. You can add so many games to them. Their UIs are both excellent. And yeah, I really just wish that we'd got more of these. If we'd got, an N64, as much as I didn't like the controller, if we got an N64 Classic, a GameCube Classic, eventually gotten all the way to a Wii Classic and stuff like that, that would have been really cool. They would have been really neat, and I think it would have sold really well, if they just kept doing this for a while. Obviously to a limit, they couldn't have reasonably done a Wii U Classic, but yeah, a lot of potential there. I really do think these were a great idea, and I just hope that Nintendo revisits them one day, but I guess we'll have to wait until Nintendo gets into financial difficulties again before that'll happen, most likely. But yeah, very cool time to be a fan of Nintendo, and genuinely some really good releases, some really good consoles. Moving on, though, I've been holding on for a while. Let's talk about the Game & Watch. My entire experience with the Game & Watch is the Super Mario Bros. Edition, which was released for the 25th anniversary, or 30th anniversary, or whatever, 40th anniversary, who knows at this point. But yeah, it was released for the Mario Bros. Anniversary, and yeah, it has Super Mario, The Lost Levels, and Mario Brothers, and it's cool. I like it. I enjoy it. I play it every once in a while. In a recent video, I actually showed I carry that with my Switch 2. I have that in the Switch 2 case, so anywhere I go, that I bring the Switch 2, I also bring my Mario Brothers Game & Watch, just because, you don't always want to pull out a full game console. Sometimes you just want to play a quick game of Mario. You just want to play a level of Mario or whatever. And I think that's the great thing about Game & Watch consoles. Even at the time that they first released, they're simple games, a lot of them are LCD games. In fact, most of them are LCD games. And, they're quick, they're fun. I quite like Balls. I think that's a pretty fun one. Not Pitfall, that's not the one. I don't remember which one I'm talking about, but Wrecking Crew's pretty good as well. There's a lot of good Game & Watch games, and in general, I just think it's a genuinely good selection of consoles. Obviously, it's many different ones. Each have one game, that's it. And obviously, I've got Donkey Kong 2 here, or Donkey Kong 3, whichever it is, which was a very interesting one, because it has the dual screen. It looks like a DS. It's a very unique looking Game & Watch, but most of them were just single screen, just they look at the bottom of this, and I genuinely think they are a great idea. There's the Legend of Zelda one, which you can actually still get on the Nintendo store right now, which I'm very tempted by. I'm not as big of a Zelda fan as I am Mario, but that is very tempting just because, it's another Game & Watch. I think that's really cool. But yeah, the Game & Watch line of handhelds was really fun. Genuinely, the idea of it is so good, and the fact it is, the precursor to basically everything modern Nintendo represents is really cool. And yeah, as much as the color TV was the original home console, this was the original handheld, and it had a lot of variety. Obviously, it was every single one was a separate console and everything, but like genuinely, I think this is worlds above like the Pokemon Mini, which is a similar type of device, but like really this was released so much earlier. I think I can't quite put it in iconic. It's not quite alongside the DSi, the NES, the Switch 2. It's not quite there, but I could happily put it above the Panasonic Q. I'm not going to put it above the SNES the NES top loader even. But yeah, the Game & Watch series is such a cool series of consoles. I wish that I owned more of them. Like genuinely, as I say, I really want to get the Zelda one. But getting some of the actual original ones, if I'm able to find them at a decent price, would be really cool. I would really love to have those. Just because I genuinely think they are really fun games. And for how basic they are, it is just good to have that kind of stuff. Like, I like my LCD stuff. I've spoken before about LCD games for me just being like a fun novelty, where it's like, I'll pick them up, play them for a few seconds, realistically, a few minutes maybe, but like, and I'll just put them down, and I don't think about them again for months, maybe years, and I pick them up again, and have a good time again. It just, the Game & Watch is that, but it's more frequent that I'll think about it. You know what I mean? It's very much one of the things where it's like, they are genuinely a good console, a good like platform to play games on, and yeah, Game & Watch, pretty great, pretty great. Okay, we're getting down to the weirdos and the offshoots at this point. Original Game Boy. I'm not going to talk too much about it because a lot of the stuff I'm going to say about this can be said about literally every other Game Boy variant. But obviously, amazing handheld library, such a long life for a handheld as well, and it can survive a bomb. Potential nuclear? I can't remember if it was a nuclear bomb that it survived or just a regular bombing. But either way, like, it's a very tough console, very affordable at the time. It obviously has the weird green screen, which is kind of weird, but overall, very iconic. Obviously had Tetris as a pack-in title, really cool. Tetris is one of my favourite games, unironically. And yeah, I would struggle to put it any lower than this. I don't think I can put it maybe I can put it above the NES. Maybe I could put it above the DSi. I'm not putting it above any version of the SNES or the Switch 2. But like, the Game Boy, the original Game Boy, is so good. I like remember, I never had one personally, but my dad had one, and I was always just amazed by some of the games that he would play on it. Like, it was mostly Tetris, don't get me wrong, but like, I can't remember if it was Mario Golf or just regular golf, but you'd play that a lot, and that looked great for like, post-it note of a screen, and just, I at the time was still playing my hand-me-down SNES, and like, I was looking at the Game Boy and just being like, wow, this actually looks good though. This actually like looks like a decent thing. And I eventually got a Pocket, though it didn't really work, and I eventually got, a DS Lite, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, the Game Boy's great. The Game Boy generally is great. We may as well get the variants out of the way. So we've got the Game Boy Light. I think this is the right way around. This is the Game Boy Light, I believe. And it's just a smaller version of the same thing, but with a backlit screen. Or a frontlit screen. I can't remember which way around it is. But yeah, it is technically an upgrade because it's a pocket size body, but it's, actually a lit screen. So it is better. Still suffers from having, a green screen, but that is fine. At least you could now see it in the dark. And then the Pocket as well. I'm going to put it up below the Light. The Light was Japanese exclusive, which is kind of interesting enough itself. But yeah, the Light, the Pocket, and the original Game Boy, they're all the same thing. Like, there's so little difference between them, but like, each one is a slight upgrade of the next, So you've got the original Game Boy, which is bulky, it can survive anything, but it's, it eats batteries very quickly, it's, not got a lit screen, it's kind of inferior to a lot of its competition in many ways. It just has a really good game library, and it's relatively cheap. Then you've got the Game Boy Pocket, which is the same thing, but thinner, very nice, pocketable. I say, I had a yellow Game Boy Pocket, and for the time it did work, I loved it, and then it stopped working, and I kind of just stopped thinking about it for a very long time, until I reshelled it recently, and it's still not working, but at least it looks better. But yeah, I have good memories of the Pocket for what they're worth. And yeah, then the Lite is just a Pocket with a lit screen. So it just, each one is just an upgrade over the next. They're all about the same in terms of overall quality. But yeah, great consoles. The original Game Boy line is just so good. And yeah, I guess we'll jump around a little bit. We'll get rid of some of the more nonsensical ones. So the DSi XL. I personally think, and I think this is generally what most people agree on, it's worse than the original DSi. It both feels a bit worse, has a lot of questionable choices around like how it was designed. Like, it came with a fountain pen rather than regular stylus. It was very much going for that like older demographic, which is fine. Is is a different demographic to hit, but yeah, it was a very questionable release and doesn't really fit today's world, I suppose. And yeah, I don't think it was really right for the time either, unfortunately. But I could put it at the bottom of great. I think. Yeah, I could put it above a Game Boy Advance, like regular. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. It's a decent downgrade, in my opinion, in overall experience compared to the original DSi. But like, it's still alright. It's still a perfectly good console, and obviously it has a lot of the features of the DSi, but it's bigger. So like, if that's what you're wanting, if you just want a bigger screen, it is good. It's just not what I would personally go for. And yeah, the color selection is also kind of terrible. The DSi has some great colors. My personal DSi is red, and I love it. And yeah, in general, I think the DSi had some great colorways, whereas the DSi XL just was like brown and black and khaki. Like, I don't think khaki was actually a color, but like yeah, it was very much like dull, a bit boring. It was very a beige mom sort of approach, but yeah, still a good console overall. It wasn't as good as the one it was a variant of, I guess we'll get the other two weird ones out of the way. Yeah, we do actually have three out of the way, I guess. 3DS XL. We'll get to the actual 3DS and I'll give my thoughts there. 3DS XL though, pretty good. That one fixed a lot of the problems that the DSi XL had in terms of just being like kind of inferior. I'll happily put this above the NES actually. I mean, I'll put it right next to the regular DSi. The 3DS XL, a lot of people say it's their favorite. Personally, I can take it or leave it. I like the regular size DS family. In general, 3DS family as well. I'm not a huge fan of the XL consoles, but that's just a personal preference. But yeah, the XL is perfectly good. The 3DS XL, it had some slight upgrades in terms of the internals. But like overall, it's nothing too special. I will, however, say it is better than the actual original 3DS. Where am I going to put this, though? The original 3DS was interesting, because obviously it was the next thing after the DS family of systems. Like, it was the next thing after the DSi XL, and the 3D was a huge gimmick. It meant so much. Like, it got people excited. However, they kind of released this at a very questionable time, because it was right around the time of the PS Vita. And as much as the PS Vita generally did flop, the PS Vita cost the same as the 3DS before the price drop. And like, the 3DS had a load of caveats around, like, children under 7 shouldn't really use the 3D, and the game selection wasn't that great, and like a million other things that, while eventually, after price cuts and the ambassador program and stuff like that, like, the 3DS did actually get a lot better, it still kind of lived in that shadow of its initial launch being kind of meh. And unfortunately, I don't think I can put it that high, especially like the actual build, in the same way that the original DS is kind of bad in a lot of ways. The original 3DS is kind of also pretty mediocre. I still think it's better than the DSi XL. How much better, though? It's not better than the NES Classic console, is it? I think it has to go there. I think I have to drop it down to there. The 3DS XL fixes so many of the problems that I have with the original 3DS. I don't think I can do anything other than just put it like that. I think that's what it is. So it's like, yeah, the DSi is sandwiched the two 3DS models. I think that's how it has to be. That is how it has to be. Okay. We'll move on. I think we'll stay with the 3DS though for a moment. With the only other non-new variant, we have the 2DS. I don't like this thing. I understand a lot of people find this the most ergonomic 3DS system. I don't. It's a slab. I don't know what I'm doing with it. It's weirdly shaped. It's slightly angular. I don't get it. It's really cool in a way. Like, it's the fact that it's only one screen is really interesting, and like there is a lot to like about it. But like, I don't get it. I don't understand why it exists really. Like, other than that they needed to be able to sell, you know, Pokemon games to 7-year-olds. That's really all I can think, because like the 2DS is just a 3DS in a different style shell that is, in my opinion, worse. Though it is less prone to failure, I'll give it that. And it doesn't have the 3D aspect, which is fine, but like, it's just weird. I don't know. To me, it's very questionable that they did it the way they did, and yeah, I don't know. For me, I don't jive with it. It's not for me, and you know, it never was meant for me, to be fair. But yeah, that's just where it has to go. Unfortunately, it's in the Y category. My opinion changes a little bit with the 2DS XL. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, the original 2DS is just a bit weird to me. I don't really get it. So moving on, I guess we'll do the final Game Boy. Yeah, we'll do the Game Boy Color. Once again, it's not really a massive upgrade. And I realise the SP is not here. Oh, the SP is here. Never mind. I was going to say something really stupid there. But yeah, the Game Boy Color is an upgrade over all previous Game Boy Colors at the time. All Game Boy variants? What did I just say? Colors. Game Boy Colors. I mean, technically, it has that transparency. But yeah, the Game Boy Color was technically an upgrade, but it didn't have all the features that you wanted. Mostly the fact that it was a bit bulkier, though I would argue it's actually a little bit more ergonomic than the Pocket, despite being a little bit bigger. And it doesn't have the lit screen of the Lite. Which begs the question, what was the point of this at the time it released? Like, I feel like they could have waited maybe a year longer, 2 years longer, had a slightly higher price point, and had a lit screen. And I guess at the end of the day, that's basically what happened with the Game Boy Advance. Like, that is essentially what the actual next-gen console is. And, like, Nintendo themselves often don't count the Game Boy Color as a separate console. They kind of just lump it in with the original Game Boy family. But, yeah, this isn't... I was about to say it isn't really a, you know, simple upgrade, but I suppose it's the exact same as the DSi. Like, it's a slight modification that does actually upgrade the overall experience and has a few exclusive games. I will say the Game Boy Color has a lot more exclusive games than like the DSi, but at the same time, like, it's not too many. It's not that big of a difference. And yeah, in general, I think this is how it has to go. So yeah, it is better than all previous Game Boys. However, I can't put it much higher, and to be fair, I don't think anyone would argue that it's better than the other two technical consoles that I have here. So yeah, the Game Boy Pocket is currently third if you ignore the fact I have 3 different SNESs. Yeah, I feel that's fine for now. It's gonna change in a second, I'm sure. But yeah, I guess we'll move on to Virtual Boy. This is an interesting console. Recently, a lot of people have been interested in this again, due to the fact that, obviously, NSO now has Virtual Boy games. It was the first attempt by Nintendo to do 3D gaming. Or at least, the first attempt that actually came to fruition. And they wanted to have the SNES have 3D, I believe, for a time. And then they tried it again with the N64 and the GameCube. It just never worked out for anything, apparently. But yeah, the Virtual Boy is the Virtual Boy. It's uncomfortable, it's all in red, it suffers from a lot of the issues that the Game Boy original had. Why? Just why? I'll put it below the N64 just because I'll upset people if I don't. But like, I don't know. The controller is weird as well. It's kind of more modern than the N64 controller in a lot of ways, but it's also still really weird. The actual headset the fact that it's not wearable like a modern VR headset is kind of strange enough itself, but like that's acceptable for the time. I suppose it wasn't the norm, but like still it's very much like, why is this the case? Overall, like, it had some good games. You know, unironically, Wario Land, Virtual Boy, Mario Clash, the Mario Tennis game that I can't remember the actual name of, the 2 Tetris games on it. Like, there's a lot of good games. Like, the library is almost all bangers. It's just a shame that, like, it's not actually a good console. And the fact that, like, to this day, you still need to have that experience to play the games reasonably. Like, obviously you can emulate on, like, a PC and that's fine. But if you want to emulate the games, you know, officially through NSO, you still need to have it in a headset, which, I mean, you can put it in, like, a Google Cardboard style thing and just, you know, experience it that way. But the real experience is still putting it in a Virtual Boy shell, which is what I've done. Like, admittedly, I have the NSO Virtual Boy, like, accessory, which, why didn't that release with a controller? So weird to me. But, yeah, the Virtual Boy, it was a failure at the time. It's looked at as a failure. A lot of people don't know it exists. And, I think it was just too ahead of its time in a lot of ways. The fact that it had a single color screen, or, you know, black and red, so 2 colors technically if you want to count black. And yeah, the fact it just didn't really have anything going for it in terms of portability. Like, it was treated as a portable console, but it wasn't. But it didn't have, like, video out. So, like, what's the point of, like, it's so weird, in my opinion. Like, it's such a weird thing to exist. And obviously they tried it again with the 3DS and got pretty successful. Not as successful as they wanted, and eventually it got pretty good. But yeah, 3D in that way, like almost like virtual reality style stuff, like, really didn't work out for Nintendo for quite a while. And the Virtual Boy is just the biggest mistake they made in terms of that. But yeah, I don't hate the Virtual Boy by any means, but it's just, yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. It's I don't know. It's not something that I would ever want to say anything more than just why to in terms of rating it. It's not that good. But yeah, the Virtual Boy, it exists. That's all I'm going to say about it. Let's move on to something else that exists. The 2DS XL, new 2DS XL, sorry. I actually am one of the people that think that this thing looks cool. I don't like the idea of a new 2DS, personally. The fact that it's a new 2DS XL when there isn't a regular new 2DS, nor is there a regular 2DS XL, is really annoying from, like, a naming convention sort of way. However, it looks good. It's one of the most comfortable consoles that Nintendo have released in terms of handhelds. And, like, it does play the entire Nintendo DS and 3DS library. Like, it is technically a definitive console. However, I can't really put it much higher than this because it is kind of cheap. The actual build quality isn't as good as the Nintendo 3DS XL. Like, I'm putting it higher just because it is a better console, technically. Like, it does have the C-Stick, it does have, like, all the little quality of life features of the new line, but it's not great. It's not great. In fact, I feel like because this is iconic, I think I need to move a few things down here. I really don't want to have to move the NES out of iconic, though. Oh, this is a problem. Because the more I think about it, I can't be putting the new 2DS XL, the 3DS XL, and the DSi in iconic, can I? Oh boy, I can't do this. I can't do that. But, oh boy, I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to put the NES in great, not iconic. Because everything above it is being moved down. I think I'll keep these as they are. I'm going to put the light down. Oh, I'm looking at it. I'm like, am I really calling these iconic? The fact that the Game Boy Light, despite I think it is better than the Game Boy Pocket, no one knows about it. Like, it's not a known console. I think, oh boy, I can't rightly put it in iconic, can I? Okay, it's fine. It's fine. We move. We continue on. We don't worry about that. We're going to rearrange stuff. I'm going to try and add the few consoles that I apparently missed, including the Super Famicom, just to have it in the list. But yeah, oh boy. I feel bad putting the NES there, but like, this is how I feel. I feel like these are better, but these are not iconic. Like, iconic means something different. That I feel bad for that, but I feel like it is the right thing to do. Okay. Let's do the Wii. We've been waiting for it. Is it better than the SNES? Is it better than the SNES? The Wii was generational. That's for sure. It's definitely in this tier. Is it better than the SNES? Like, this is the Nintendo console. Like, everyone, even like the least gamer person you know, has played the Wii. Like, definitively. Like, my grandparents have all played the Wii. They have put plenty of time into Wii Sports and Wii Fit. Like, I can 100% guarantee that it's the normie console. It is the most popular It's the most popular Nintendo thing. Like, for normal people. You know, it just... I think it has to be. I think, like, it's too iconic. There's so many elements of the Wii that are just, to this day, so iconic. Even down to things like the Wii music, the actual, like, the Wii Shop Channel music, the Wii menu music, like the Mii Maker music, all that kind of stuff. I, to this day, still use the Mii Maker music in videos. I may even be using it in this video. I don't know. I haven't chosen the music yet. Like, it brought so much to the table. Motion controls were popularized massively to the point where both Xbox and PlayStation copied. And, like, to this day, the motion controls from the Wii are still in Nintendo's consoles. They were in the Wii U, they're in the Switch, they're in the Switch 2, and, like, to a lesser extent, PlayStation took a lot of that for, like, gyro aiming and stuff. Like, to this day, like, a PS5 controller still has, like, motion controls. It was a big deal. Like, motion controls really did take over the world, and it was all thanks to the Wii. And the Wii is just an excellent console. It has a lot of shovelware, a lot of problems with the games, like, overall, but the library is so vast and, like, has so much good stuff in it. Like, I have something in the range of, like, 80 or 90 Wii games, and I have, like, 2 that aren't good. Like, it's insane how great the Wii library actually is. And yeah, I don't think I could say anything really too bad about it, other than the fact that, like, the Wiimote is a little bit... It's not the best controller ever. It is probably better than the Joy-Cons, I'll give it that. But, like, yeah, the Wii is just such an iconic console. I don't think there's really anything else to say about it. I will include, when I try and add more images, the Wii Mini and the Wii Family Edition. But, like, yeah, the original Wii with the GameCube support and everything, which, once again, backwards compatibility, it's great. It's great to have. Yeah, the Wii original, the base model Wii, probably the greatest Nintendo console of all time. I don't think I'm going to put anything else. Like, looking at what else we've got, you know, as much as I love the GameCube, I don't think I'm putting anything else above it. And in fact, let's just do the GameCube, get out of the way. So, I grew up with the SNES. I didn't grow up with the GameCube. I love the GameCube controller more than, like, any other controller. It is my favorite controller of all time. I used it a ton. I had I still have it to this day, a Venom brand GameCube controller, third-party controller, that I used that for every game on the Wii that allowed it. Like, I did not play a GameCube game on the Wii for so long, but I used a GameCube controller in so many games. I used it in Mario Kart, I used it in Smash. I'm trying to think of other games that actually used it, but, like, the games that had that option, I used the GameCube controller. I love that thing. It is such a good controller. I don't think I can bring myself to put it above the SNES. I don't think I'm that blinded, but my god, not only is the controller one of the best, most of the first-party games are all-timers. Like, some of the greatest of all time. Like, you look at, like, Sunshine, you look at Wind Waker, even, like, some of the less popular stuff. Star Fox Adventures is excellent. Like, people are just mean. It's such a really good game. Like, I love the GameCube so much. The only thing that, like, makes me not want to put it any higher is just because I still have an SNES. I still have a Wii. I don't have a GameCube currently, and it's because I can play my GameCube games on the Wii. I don't need a GameCube. The GameCube is in this weird spot where there is technically a better console that can play all its games, and that's really unfortunate. And like, sure, like I said about the Panasonic Q, of just like that is something that I genuinely really want to own. I'm not necessarily needing a GameCube in my life. Like, obviously, if I was able to get it and include the Game Boy Advance, I think it's just a Game Boy in general, player, that would be great. Like, the Game Boy player with the GameCube is actually a really good combo. But, like, yeah, I love the GameCube controller too much to put it any lower than this. I think it is an excellent console. However, the console that is 2 steps above it is technically the same thing, but better. And I can't ignore that. So, like, the GameCube is definitely generational to me. It may not be in general. I don't think it's even necessarily iconic in general. But, like, for me, it is one of the most definitive consoles. And I think a lot of people, especially people that play Mario Kart and Smash, like, will agree that the controller alone is one of the greatest of all time. Like, it's up there with the Xbox 360 controller and the Xbox Series controller. It is one of the best controllers ever made. And yeah, I genuinely think it is just excellent. I love the GameCube so much, and yeah, that's where it's going to be. It's below the SNES, it's below the Wii, but it's still so good. It is still so good. Okay, I realize we're missing quite a few actually from this. I'm gonna have to add a few more images, but yeah, we have. We'll just go through the rest of them in the order that they're on screen. Game Boy Advance SP, it's the definitive Game Boy Advance. It's the Game Boy that everyone should have. Backlit screen, frontlit screen, depending on the model. Fully backwards compatible with every Game Boy release. Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. And yeah, decently ergonomic. I like the clamshell design. I think that's really good. I am going to put it above the Switch 2. I'm not going to put it in generational. I don't think any handheld other than the Switch has reached generational status. The Switch 2 will. The Switch 2 definitely will. I think the Game Boy is close. However, I don't think it quite reaches the peaks that we've seen from like the Switch. And yeah, that's just my honest opinion. I think the Switch is definitively like the best handheld console, and the Switch 2 is getting close to overtaking that. But yeah, the Game Boy Advance SP, I love it so much. If I'm playing a Game Boy game, I'm playing it either emulated on PC or I'm playing it on the Game Boy Advance SP. I love that thing. And I mean, that's really all I can say about it. It's the definitive Game Boy in my opinion. Like, it has full backwards compatibility. It looks great as back and or front lit screens, depending on what model or if it's modded. The actual controls, the ergonomics of it is great. Like, it feels like as good as like Game Boy Pocket, which already felt really good to begin with. Like, there's so much on offer here. It has the bumpers still. It's just a great console. I genuinely think it is the best Game Boy console, and yeah, there we go. Top of iconic. It has to be. So that leaves us with the new 3DS consoles. So, quick thing. The new 3DS XL was the main version in the US. However, the rest of the world mainly had the regular. I'm going to just put the regular 3DS XL just because I have never actually seen one in person. I'm going to put it at the top of great. I'll put it below the Game Boy. Yeah, I'll put it next to the new 2DS XL. Just purely because, like, to me, they're kind of the same thing. I don't see the point. Like, I'd almost be tempted to put it in Y, but, like, I'm not going to do that to it just because it is a good console. It is, if you want the biggest screen, it's the definitive, like, I'd say legitimately the definitive 3DS. If you're wanting a 3DS right now, get the new 3DS XL if you can afford it, because all the DS line, including the 3DS, are ridiculously expensive right now, so it is what it is. But, yeah, personally, though, I like the 3DS, the regular new 3DS. I really like it. It is the one I have. It's the one I got after, I didn't get an original 3DS. I got a PS Vita. And then a year or two later, I was like, okay, I want Nintendo, please. And I got a new Nintendo 3DS, and I swapped out I got the grey model originally. I swapped out the faceplates or backplates, whatever you want to call them, with a polka dot pattern, which I love. I absolutely adore the design on my my new 3DS. And yeah, if I'm playing a DS game that isn't an import, like if I'm playing anything that is actually PAL region, I'm playing it on the new 3DS, and that is just how it is. I can't possibly put it above the Advance SP. For me, it just doesn't quite get to that point, and it's not going to get above any version of the SNES or the Switch 2. However, it's right there with them. Like, it is definitively one of the best handhelds Nintendo has made. It's not the best. I think the SP is actually the best. But yeah, the new 3DS I think is excellent. I'll knock up the new 3DS XL to be above the Lite. Just because, like, people don't know the Lite. People know the 3DS XL, the new 3DS XL. So I'll move it up a little bit. But yeah, I feel like the regular new 3DS is just excellent. It feels great. It's really ergonomic. Like, the screens look beautiful. In general, I think it's just an excellent console. I really do love it. And that leaves us with the Switch and the Switch OLED. So yeah, the Switch OLED is better. However, the price change, the price difference, and the fact that it's white, which obviously picks up a lot more scuffs and stuff, is a bit of a downgrade in some ways compared to the original Switch. I'm going to put it in the top of Iconic. We're going to put the Switch 1. Ooh, that's difficult, actually. Am I putting it above or below? I'm putting it above the GameCube. Screw it. I'm putting it above the GameCube. We're doing it. I think the Switch is the technical third best Nintendo console. And obviously it's either the best or the second best selling of all time. So it's like, yeah, the Nintendo Switch is such a good console. It's going to remain iconic forever. It was a generational save for Nintendo after the Wii U generation. It did everything right, in my opinion. Like, you can really see the DNA from the Wii U in the Switch, but it took all the best aspects and got rid of all the worst. The Joy-Cons, despite the fact that they are a bit, small and, they have Joy-Con drift and stuff, like, they are still excellent controllers. The fact that they are both, one controller that you hold in both hands, like a nunchuck and Wiimote, but they also can be put together with a I forget what the binder thing is called, but the actual like connector between them, you can do that. Or you can have just one on its own on its side, like Wiimote again, and it kind of acts like an SNES controller, or an NES controller more realistically, because there are 2 buttons but bumpers, I don't know. It's excellent. It's honestly really good. And yeah, I think that really comes down to where I am with it all. It's just really, really good in terms of consoles, and it is the best handheld Nintendo has ever released, in my opinion. And that could change with the Switch 2 just needs more games. The Switch 2 will definitely overtake the Switch eventually. But for right now, because the Switch's library is, complete and is excellent. Well, it's not complete because there's still games coming out for it, but like, it's still one of the best game consoles of all time. It's still selling excellent right now. And we'll get to the Switch Lite in a moment, but yeah. That is where the rankings go right now. I need to add a few more images to this because apparently I missed a few, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I've added 6 more things just to hopefully round us out. So Switch Lite, I think, is a better, in some ways, Switch than the actual Switch. However, the lack of the actual dockability does put it down a little bit. I'd actually even say it kind of puts it below a lot of this stuff. However, it's still a Switch. It still has the same library. It just doesn't have that feature. It still has all the other benefits of having a Switch. You don't have the detachable Joy-Cons, but that's kind of okay. Overall, like I think it is still a good console. Is it better than the Game Boy Advance? Is it better than the Switch 2? I think I can happily just put it there. I actually really like the Switch Lite. Like, I'm planning on getting a Switch Lite just because it's more portable than a regular Switch 2. But yeah, the Switch 2 Lite, whenever that comes out, is going to be so good. As is, the fact that the Switch Lite is still available and, runs as well as it does for what, it is. I think it's still a really worthwhile console to actually have. And, yeah, it rounds out the Switch family pretty well. Like, the OLED is obviously the best version. The base model, or rather the second release version of the first model, is honestly excellent. And the Switch Lite is a very good smaller version, really. But yeah, it is genuinely like such a good console. Yeah, the 64DD. It didn't release outside Japan. It has all the same issues as the N64. It's just now got discs. Yeah, no, we'll put it at the bottom of why. We've got the Famicom, which I think is a lot better than the actual NES. How much better though? How much? You know what? This one can be the one in Iconic. We'll go with that. I'll put it below the game. It could be above all these, potentially. The Famicom's great. I like the Famicom a lot more than I like the NES. Is it better than the Game Boy line of consoles though? Maybe. It might be. I'm also lumping in new 3DS with that, but you know what? No, we'll put it below the Game Boy. I think the fact is you can play a Game Boy right now and be perfectly happy. If you play an NES right now, it depends on your setup, and that really does change perspective. But I do much prefer the Famicom to the other NES variants, personally. The Famicom DD, or whatever they actually called this thing. Once again, Japanese exclusive. Never seen one in the wild. Don't even know what's exclusive to it. It's still a Famicom, so like, I guess, but like, also why? I'm going a bit rapid fire with these just because we've been going for an hour and a half. But yeah, we'll throw it in Y, just like the 64DD, and I guess that just leaves us with the Family Edition. And the Wii Mini. The Wii Mini is interesting. No online. Came bundled exclusively with Mario Kart, and is weird in a lot of ways visually. It's unique. It's a very nice looking console in my opinion. I think it actually kind of looks better than the original Wii. It's just, why does it exist? Like, a lot of people assume, or at least have theorized, that it's down to the fact that this was released first in Canada. And Canada has a lot of, like, log cabins and, like, very remote places that people like to stay. So, like, set one of those up with a Wii Mini. You don't have to worry about the online. Like, the online isn't even an option. And there you go. You've got, like, a Wii. You can play Mario Kart. You can play Wii Sports and stuff. Like, it seems a decent idea. And it's still a Wii at the end of the day. But, like, the reason why I put the Wii Family Edition in bad is because it's a Wii without GameCube support, which you're taking half of the library away from it. I feel like that's a big drop off. Also, the fact that it doesn't come with a stand, as much as that's a pointless real inclusion. I like the fact that it includes the stand. This you can technically stand up on its side. It looks wrong, but like you can do it. But yeah, I think the Family Edition is just a bad version of the Wii. Personally, the Wii Mini isn't a bad version. It just shouldn't exist. It has no reason to exist. I think that's where it kind of has to go. Let's see. Am I happy with where everything is now? Realistically, no, I'm not. But like, is it fine? It's kind of fine. It's kind of okay. I'm chill with this. I'm happy for right now. For in this moment in time, I am perfectly happy with what I am seeing on my screen. I will change my mind during the editing process, I'm sure. But for right now, this is perfectly good to me. And yeah, we'll leave it there. So that is my ranking for every Nintendo console. I'll have this tier list in the description below if you are interested in trying it out for yourself. If you do try it out, you can send me yours on Blue Sky at RabbitWithAxe. Or you can send it me on Twitter. I just probably won't see it for a while because I don't actively use Twitter. But yeah, otherwise it's going to be from me. So I hope you enjoyed this very long video. If you did, make sure to like it, subscribe to the internet, and ring the bell so never miss an upload. Otherwise, comment below your thoughts and feelings on my preference for Nintendo consoles. And I'll see you next time. Bye!
Look at the screen, you'll be fine. Go just wanna tell